All right, so we're going to go ahead and go over the sophomore project paper outline along with the anchor text for the causes and effects section. So for this section, you need 2 to 4 paragraphs, and this is incorrect, but you need to cite at least one source per paragraph in this section. So you're answering these 3 questions. What is the primary cause of this problem and the primary effect? What is the secondary cause of the problem and what is the secondary effect? And consider who or what is affected by this problem, how are they affected, and or how people are affected locally, nationally, and or globally. Now this question might look different for every one of you, so if you are doing a random specific topic, you might be looking more locally. Nationally would be United States, and then globally would be the whole world or maybe a different country. So this question might be different for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and move on over to our anchor text. You do have access to this in Canvas, and I'm going to break down the causes and effects section of our anchor text. So let's go ahead and I will click on over to that. Okay, so this is our anchor text, Preventing Mass Violence. So we've read the introduction and you guys have written your introduction. So this essay has very clearly laid out its section. So we have causes and effects of the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading this section. Mass shootings are caused by an assortment of factors. To begin, media has been and continues to be a source of unhealthy expression and incentivization for vulnerable individuals. A large concern is the amount of attention that news outlets generates on reporting these incidents. A key detail to understand is that news stations are dependent on being relevant and consistently informative. By pushing as much information as possible quickly out to the audience, stations are able to remain competitive in a wide array of journalism viewers can choose from. Unfortunately, this leads to reports revealing the person behind the crime. University of Oregon's Nicole Damian was found in the crime report explaining that the majority of reporters supported typical perpetrator coverage, including naming and publishing photos of the perpetrator as well as perpetrator statements, videos, and or manifestos. Whether or not the journalist and the editors were aware of the impact of presenting comprehensive reports on the criminal becomes irrelevant in the face of the infamy they inadvertently build up for the crime and those involved. In addition, the contagious influence grows larger depending on the reach of the news. As Sherry Towers elaborates to CNN, national news media attention is like a vector that reaches people who are vulnerable. Once infected with knowledge of a shooting from national media coverage, data shows that a person is more likely to commit a similar crime. Certainly, the media is not a mutually exclusive influence on risky individuals. While the media plays a role of enabling those with similar ideologies, mental illnesses are noted to be one of the largest common characteristics between shooters. In fact, Los Angeles Times found through research that at least 59% of the 185 public mass shootings that took place in the United States from 1900 through 2017 were carried out by people who had either been diagnosed with a mental disorder or demonstrated signs of serious mental illness prior to the attack. The most obvious factor, however, is also the greatest influence on empowering these individuals: guns. Excessive gun accessibility may be to blame for providing the firepower in these situations. With the disproportionate percentage of mentally ill that are carrying out these crimes, the current distribution of weapons and information has been doing no favor to the worrying climb in lethal shootings. Shootings of all sizes have undoubtedly spread detrimental effects across the nation, but those effects are especially concentrated in locations to immediate proximity to where the incident took place. The first effects are the injuries and the deaths inflicted on a scene. An estimated 1,081 people have been killed in public mass shootings since 1966 to early 2018. And the number of injured individuals ranged within the thousands. 176 of those 1,081 dead were either children or teenagers. Although the shooting death count pales in comparison to the total millions of yearly deaths in the United States alone, these deaths are also responsible for psychological ripples. The effects of these ripples reach further than just those people directly involved in the tragedy. Families and people close to the event may also suffer trauma. After the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, mental health professional Sheila Rauch reached out to Moyers & Company for an interview on mass shooting aftermaths. Rauch describes that for those who may not have been personally injured, as we will not know until a few months how the impact on their psychological health. Trauma such as shooting can lead to depression or PTSD or other mental health issues that can impede family and work function. In other words, having a strong sense of security and control over one's life is commonly shared value, and the introduction of mass killings disrupts that stability. Without intervention, the spread, physical, and mental effects of shootings may escalate even further. Okay, so let's go back up, and we're going to go ahead and look at the causes and effects. So first thing here that I see is, to begin, media. So I know that media is one of the causes. I don't know if it's the primary cause, but it's definitely the cause that is started. Okay, hold on. I don't want to highlight the whole paragraph. Let's just go with media. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. And I'm just going to make a note here that one of the causes is media. Media influence. And then moving on to the next paragraph, it says that media is not a mutually exclusive influence on risky individuals, and then it continues to say that mental illnesses are noted to be a large common characteristic. So I'm going to put mental illness as another cause. But again, it doesn't state that if that's the primary cause, but it is definitely a common characteristic. And then it states here that the most obvious factor, however, and the greatest influence is guns. So I'm going to say that the cause here is gun accessibility. But based on the way that this is phrased, I'm going to also state that this is the primary cause, is the accessibility to guns, to firearms. All right. So now we move down to the causes. So the next paragraph says that there have spurred detrimental effects across the nation, but the first effects are the injuries and death inflicted on the scene. So this is our primary cause, is the injuries and the deaths. Okay, and then moving forward, it goes into talk about the psychological ripples that take place after the effect is a psychological ripple, and that family, friends, and those affected from tragedies experience things such as depression, PTSD, or other mental health issues. So I'm going to put secondary effect as the psychological ripples and or mental health issues stemming from being directly affected from a mass shooting. All right. So primary effect and secondary effect have been noted, and then we have recognized that we have like 3 different causes, but gun accessibility has been listed as our primary. It seems media and mental health kind of go as secondary. And then our secondary effect is the mental health aspect. So we're going to go ahead and count the sources in the paragraphs just so that we can make sure that the student is following the correct requirements, okay? So I see here that this student has 4 paragraphs. So let's go ahead and count the sources. So starting with source number 1. So remember, this is 1 source per paragraph, not 2. So I'll make that adjustment too on the slides. Okay, so first here, so we have source 1. So paragraph 1, source 1. And then this paragraph actually has 2 sources. So this person went above and beyond. All right, now let's move down to the next paragraph. If you notice that they're two different sources, the student's not using the same source. Although if it's a different part of the source, you're more than welcome to use it twice in the paragraph. But you need at least two different sources, I would suggest, in this section. Okay, moving down. So we see right here, this is cited. So this is another source. So paragraph 2, source 1. All right, and I don't see any other sources, so one source, one paragraph, it works. All right, now I'm moving on to paragraph 3. So this is a paraphrased piece of evidence, this section right here, an estimated 1,081 people. This author is putting it in their own words, but using the research material. So paragraph 3, source 1. So there's no other sources, so we're moving on. And so it looks like the Moyers and Company, that part is moving forward about the trauma. That is another source. So this is paragraph 4, source 1. So, and that is it. So the student has cited one source per paragraph. It's up here. So yeah, so you're not citing at least 2 sources per paragraph. You're citing at least 1 source per paragraph. Our anchor text did cite 2 in the first paragraph and then 1 source moving forward, and that is totally okay. You do not need to cite 2 sources per paragraph. This anchor text does go above and beyond, which is great, but you only need to cite 1 source per paragraph. And if you noticed, sometimes they ended on quotations, and that's totally fine. It's not necessarily super similar to a T-bear, but you will use some of the structures to help write. And that is how we're breaking down the causes and effects. I hope this was helpful as you go and write your own causes and effects section. And if you have any questions, feel free to email your English teacher. Thank you, guys.